digital around the world.
Introducing my company and myself, I'm Ajith Balakumar, and I'm the founder CEO of Forthcode Technologies. We have onboard sales and catering management system for airlines. During this time, I believe there is a lot of innovation and technology adoption happening in the airline industry. We believe that technology has to play a major role in recovering airlines from this COVID pandemic situation. So, being said that, now I would like to spend more time on getting you guys introduced to the panelists. So I would like to start with Siddharth. Siddharth, can you a little bit explain about AirAsia India and your strategy to come out of COVID pandemic situation?
Yeah, sure, Ajith, and thank you very much for having me on the panel. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. I understand it's a marathon session that everybody's been going through. So just to introduce myself, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for AirAsia India. AirAsia India is a joint venture between Tata Sons or the Tata Group and AirAsia Investment or the AirAsia Group in Berhad. My own experience actually starts with I did my MBA in marketing and strategy, and prior to that had a post-graduation in advertising from the Xavier Institute of Communications in Bombay. But my academic background is actually in economics. So my bachelor's was in economics from Delhi University. And I've been frequenting and speaking at a number of different, and my interest in terms of interest area has always been digital ecosystems, especially travel and tourism and marketing strategy. I started my career in advertising with Ogilvy and then with JWT, which is now Wunderman Thompson, working on what were then FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods accounts like Unilever and Nestle. I then joined the Tata Group in 2006, where I have been since in various different roles, starting with the automotive business, where I worked on the Tata Nano project, which was then billed as the most affordable car in the world when it had launched. I moved on to hospitality for a while with budget hotels and built the Ginger Hotel business model for metros, and then moved on to beverages. I worked on the integration of Tata Global Beverages recently after the acquisition of Tetley Tea in the UK, 8 O'Clock Coffee in New Jersey, and Himalayan Water in India. And then worked with the Tata Group in the corporate office, Bombay House, developing the internationalization strategy for the Tata brand in the US, UK, China, and South Africa, which were the 4 focus geographies of the brand at that time. This was around 2008. I've since worked predominantly shuttling between Europe and Asia Pacific, primarily London and Bombay. I'm now based out of Bangalore with AirAsia India, which is our headquarters. We're the only airline in India headquartered out of Bangalore, which gives us a unique perspective into the digital side of things. As you know, Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of this region. So I've spent the last 10 odd years launching and heading various different iconic brands. I started as being brand manager of Tetley Tea in the UK, and then moved on to overseeing strategy and business development for Tata Global Beverages when that entity was created for 15 Asia Pacific countries, primarily focused on Hong Kong, China, Philippines, Thailand, and a couple of other markets. I then moved on as marketing director at the Taj Group of Hotels, where I spent the last decade before joining AirAsia, launching the Vivanta brand in the upper upscale category, and led sales and marketing across teams in APAC, Europe, and Africa. So that's my background. AirAsia India, as I said, is a joint venture between Tata Sons and the AirAsia Group. We've been operating in this market for over 6 years now. Unlike Southeast Asia, where we have a dominant market share, having entered the market a lot later than many of the other airlines in the industry, we operate here not as a market leader, but more as a challenger. We are the 3rd largest low-cost carrier and 4th largest carrier overall right now, both pre-pandemic, and we have made some progress actually post the pandemic as well in terms of the market share. So we carried roughly about 10 million passengers in the last financial year in the domestic territory of India. We remain the #1 airline in India on time performance, which is the key metric. We've in fact, thanks to the digitization of a number of different initiatives and the regulation that has come into play post-pandemic, been able to achieve some record on-time performance metrics, including a 98.4% OT. The month of September, August saw similar numbers. So we're seeing a significant change in the way in which both individuals are traveling in the post-pandemic period and in their adoption of technology, which we've been able to leverage, being a more agile and being a digital first airline, which has enabled us to actually leverage the situation in some sense to what I like to do in terms of answering Ajith's answer to what the strategy really is. Our primary focus at this time has been not just differentiating the AirAsia brand in India within the new normal of flying, but to actually look at digital initiatives to redefine the new normal of travel and aviation in itself by leading the change rather than reacting to it, and using that as an opportunity to craft a better experience for our guests. So maybe during the discussion, we'll speak a bit more about that, but in summary, my experience and our strategy in aviation in India at the moment.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Siddharth. I have first-hand experience in your innovation and aggressiveness in implementing latest technology in aviation. So I will come back with a lot more questions. Now let's move on to Cyril. Cyril is the CEO of PXCom, which is one of the leading IFE company in the world, and they have more than 30 airlines as their clients. So I'm sure Cyril will be able to contribute more on what is happening on board and what is the potential of IoT on board in lines with offline IoT sensors enabling customer experience enhancing. Cyril?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ajith. Thank you also to having me on board this panel discussion. So I'm Cyril Jean, co-founder of PXCom. A very quick background on me is that I got a graduation 20 years ago or a little bit more in computer science and electronics. Since then, I have created 3 different organizations, all dedicated to embedded systems. The latest one is PXCom. PXCom is basically a tech and consulting company created in 2013. And from a digital standpoint, we develop software that are integrated on the in-flight entertainment platform. So basically apps that you can find on the seatback screens for the long-haul fleet, and also full cabin crew and passenger portal that you can have on the wireless in-flight entertainment platform. On the consulting side, we support the airlines on the full 60-degree project, which is basically comes from the hardware sourcing and supplying, the digital services that you can onboard thanks to the software, all the content strategy, but also, and the most important, the ROI strategy and action plan. Currently, PXCom works, as Ajith says, with 30 airlines, 30 plus airlines, including Air France, Air Canada, AirAsia also. And we also are involved with airframer programs such as with ATR and Airbus. So this is what I can say about PXCom, and I hope that I will be able to bring you the expertise of the IoT in the airline industry. Ajith, your mic is off.
Thank you, Cyril. So let's move to Amadeus. We have Viresh, who heads the reservation engineering of Amadeus. Viresh?
Yeah, thanks, Ajith. Thanks to the organizers and this wonderful event. It is a very innovative way to run this event across the globe. This is another way to show that how we are connected across the different cultures, societies, and how technology takes a full circle across the globe. Thanks for having me on part of this. A little bit about Amadeus. I think Amadeus is not an organization or a name that I need to explain to the people who are in the travel industry. But for the rest of the audience, we power the travel. So every second booking or every second travel that happens in the world, it happens with the technology or the software that we provide. So around 500 airlines and millions of bookings and the billions of bookings it happens through Amadeus. So Amadeus is around 32-year-old organization globally. It's a European company. And in India, we are around 12 years old and we have our own captive center called as Amadeus Software Labs. It's around 8 years into now. So I had the engineering and the technology division of Amadeus in Bangalore. It's called reservation. So reservation is critical for any traveler journey. So I always say, so I'm responsible for people to travel or not to travel if some of my software is not working. So that's how it is. So, but I'm not responsible for people not traveling in this current context, but I'll explain and tell you what are the measures that we are taking to make sure that people travel into that. So so that's where the reservation is the heart of Amadeus, heart of the travel industry. So I have been associated with Amadeus from past more than a decade now. I carry around 18 years of experience in the IT sector. So I've worked in the startups when the word or the buzz of startups was not there. Like I'm not fortunate like Ajith to be working in the startups now, but I'm in the startups when it was at that point. So I have a varied experience with enterprise resource planning or network management systems or the payments domain or with the travel industry now. My passion is towards technology and I leverage the strengths of my team to provide a better customer solutions. That's about me. Thanks.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Virish. So now let's look at how Amadeus is using technology to help the industry survive this particular situation. Can you tell us a little bit about how are you guys capitalizing on technology?
So I have a short presentation that I would like to share and do this. So I go with this.
Yes, please.
Just tell me, do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see a screen.
Okay. So we call it as rethink travel. So travel, we all love to travel, right? We love to travel. We like to explore the world. We like to meet people. We like to explore the cultures. So travel is an integral part of everyday life, both in our personal and a professional life. So travel connects societies. It broadens the culture. It builds the economies. So travel powers the progress. So that's how is the power of travel. So now something which has disrupted all of us and in one way or the other is the COVID-19. But the impact of the COVID-19 on the travel ecosystem has been devastating. We would have never imagined a flights not being seen in the air, the flights being grounded. So it was a standstill in terms of the travel everywhere. So there was a lot of travel restrictions that happened across the globe. The travel restrictions across the regional areas, it brought the travel industry to a standstill. So we see the recovery. We see how the things will progress and come back. As we know, the travel is an integral part of our life and the society. It will bounce back. So with this, let's see what we are trying to do.
COVID-19 brought travel to a near halt, disrupting journeys of millions. Now, as travel restrictions ease, there's an opportunity not to just rebuild the travel industry, but to rebuild it better. Put simply, it's time to rethink travel. In collaboration with our customers, partners, and the industry, Amadeus is thinking imaginatively about how, together, we enable renewal and recovery. How can we rebuild traveler confidence and trust? As safety, hygiene, and personal attitudes to risk are shaping traveler behavior, products and packages will need to cater to these newly defined requirements. So how can we, as an industry, recover and renew in a way that's better than before? An opportunity is before us to unite and maximize the contribution of travel to the economic, social, and cultural well-being of our world, all whilst creating a more sustainable sector. How can we use technology to adapt to the new normal and drive truly frictionless and sustainable travel? Modern technology will allow companies to deploy new services quickly, to not only deliver on traveller needs, but also speed up operational and commercial readiness. At Amadeus, our optimism is undeterred. Many things are likely to change, but fundamentally, humans are meant to interact and explore the world. And by working together, we can get the world travelling again. Together, let's rethink travel.
Give me a minute. So we saw how travel is required, how travel is important to our society or the day-to-day life. So for all of us to know that if the travel industry has to bounce back and the travel has to restart, one thing which is very integral part of a travel ecosystem, very, very key for travel ecosystem is the traveler. So something which needs to be taken care and work on is on the traveler confidence and the trust. If people do not have the trust and the confidence so that they could take a flight or board a flight or go to a hotel, we are not going to succeed and try and do that. So it has become very, very important for all the players in the travel industry to understand people or the traveler better in all the journeys of the traveler. So pre-travel, post-travel, and also what the traveler needs at the times of at the destination, right? So it is very important to know and understand the traveler better. What are we trying to do? So personalization is not something new which is there in the world of a travel, but it has become very, very evident now to provide all the solutions or understand the traveler better and to provide the personalized or hyper personalized solutions. The AI enabled, the data enabled AI solutions or the machine learnings are playing a very, very important role for us to understand the traveler better, to understand the sentiment analysis of the traveler, to know about the destination and how we could build and connect about the traveler and the place where it has to go and what are the different things which are required to be done. And all of this can be done, and which is something is going to enable all of us to bounce back and to understand better our traveler, and to do that is on the technology. So we understand the challenge that our industry is facing now. I completely understand that what we are trying to go through. But when we look at the future and when we look at that, what are the things that will help us to bounce back and all, it's all about the innovation and the technology, which is going to help us to get into this new normal and how we can provide a frictionless travel and sustainable travel for our industry to go and do that, right? It could be a cloud enabled technologies which will help the industry and all of us to say that how we can provide a faster time to market to our solutions and to reduce the time taken to take the changes in the legacy systems. Or it could be the IoT, it could be the biometric or the touchless technologies which is going to help us to provide a touchless travel experience to the people. So the trust and the confidence for any traveler or anyone to go for a travel, they would like to go to have a stress-free travel in the leisure and as well as in the business travel part of it. One thing which has taken a big thing now is about the touchless travel part. The biometric and a lot of these technologies is going to help us to provide this touchless travel. Okay, so what we looked around to see that how the travel might look like in the future. Right now, we all know how the travel happens, how the security check-in happens, how the boarding happens in, what we see and try and do, what the information are coming across. So how the travel might look like. So these are some things that we thought about, and these are some things which how it could be. There are 8 areas where we see that the technology could help the travel sector, the travel ecosystem to bounce back and try and do that. So let's look each one of them and how it is. This is just a guideline. This may not be the only thing that we are trying to focus on, but these are something that we say that this is going to make a big change into this. The social distancing, right? We always see that, okay, we need to connect to the people. We try and do that. We would have seen a lot of gatherings in the airports and the shopping that happens at the airports. So soon you will see that the social distancing is a new norm where people will not be able to sit together, and a lot of technology adoption that needs to happen at the shopping areas at the airport to make sure that the touchless payment is happening in the social distancing is maintained. The second, this is something which is experimented. I think some of you would have read about it. The Emirates has experimented automated health check-in at the airports. Only when it is through, the people are out to board the flights. And this is going to be something normal which is going to happen. Now, automated health checks in most of the airports which are going to be in place, and the technology is going to power this to happen. Then the enhanced digital identity. See, this is something even us, we were trying to experiment on the traveler ID kind of a project where it's going to be all the digital identity part. But the COVID-19 has, with the disruption that has brought in, it has powered the way and to accelerate the way in which this digital identity is going to happen into that. It could be the voice biometric, or it could be the facial recognition that is going to help us to build that confidence in the travelers to see the payments or the check-ins or the boarding or at the security things that could be done without any contact happening in. So here's one thing. Then now another thing that we all look at when we go to the destinations, people look at the additional information. So earlier there were a set of guides, there were a set of people who's going to help and try and do that. Now it's going to be all technology. It's going to be the information that is phones could be and it has to be the latest information which needs to be connected. It will involve connecting the various destination contents. It will involve connecting the various municipal councils to think about the hygiene factors, the places to visit, which are the places not to visit, how do we try and build this kind of a thing. So this is going to be very important for people to travel and to be there at the destination. Then about the movement tracking. So I think some of you would have heard about in Cannes in France, there were some cameras which were unable to track if people are wearing a masks or not. So this was the information which was collected and which was provided to the municipal council to monitor better the social distancing and as well as the wearing of the masks to be mandatory or not. And second, a lot of shops and a lot of places at the airports or the destinations where this AI-enabled cameras will enable to track the movement and track the movement of the people with maintaining the social distancing or with the masks or without the mask. Okay. Then this is something new. It is good or bad for our industry to do that, but this is something which is going to happen, which is happening now, is on the virtual experiences. So earlier the virtual experience and all that was more for gaming or to a fancy stuff to be there, but in more and more, many people are trying to see how this could be incorporated either to avoid a long distance travel, or if people go to a destination and they are there at the hotels, if they could not go and visit a historical place or a monument because of the various reasons or the restrictions, the hotels will be enabled with this virtual experience devices, which could be used by the travelers to do that. They go to the destination, but they may not be able to see. So this will help the travelers to have this information. And something, the robots you would have seen playing an important role in China in care of the healthcare industry. So imagine if the robots is helping the travelers, robot is helping the people at railway train stations or at the airports, where they are assisting people with all the services which the humans were trying to build and do that. So this could be the new normal which is coming in. Then last but not the least, the entire sanitization process, it has taken a new shape with the COVID-19. There could be chances, and in Hong Kong airport, they have experimented this, where the robots are taking care of the entire sanitization of the flights and at the airports, and all the things related to the airport at that part. So this is going to be something new, which is going to help us to make it more tech savvy part of it, right? So biometric boarding, we have experimented and which is working fine for us is on the biometric boarding part. the Traveler ID and technology project which is working in. So we are contributing and doing it from Bangalore into this. Just to summarize, the technology has revolutionized the travel. So travel industry never experienced this kind of a dramatic change or the need to adopt to the new technologies as fast as the need that has arisen now. But we understand that this is the need of the hour. That's how we could use a technology to shape the things into the future, how we are trying to build and do that, right? The digital transformation is the one which is going to take us further, along with building the confidence in the traveler or the people to go for the travel. So technology is going to be playing a very, very important role for us to build and do that. And we are passionate in our pursuit to use the technology to shape the future of travel, right? And we are very confident that altogether rethinking travel and this the travel. So that's from my side. I'm here to take a few more questions at the end.
Yeah, so thanks, Viresh. It was very detailed expectation from Amelia's side on what sort of technology we can actually see and what is actually working. So I can see robotics, I can see video analytics, I can see AI, I can see intensive use of data. So from that point, I have a question for Siddharth. I got a question in the chat from Professor Mirko Presser, who is also IoT Forum's secretary. So he would like to understand where do you see the recovery starting and business and tourism recovering. So from what Viresh has mentioned, we are preparing for social distancing. Is it going to be social distancing for quite some time, or is it going to go back to pre-COVID era? So can you please help us understand a little bit from the airlines perspective?
Sure. So maybe I can give some perspective from an India perspective as well. I mean, we all know travel and tourism has been one of the hardest hit sectors with the advent of the pandemic and people's apprehensions about traveling, as well as the corresponding lockdown that happened after that. Thankfully, compared to other players in the industry, AirAsia India as an entity has fared relatively better, given our insulation from operating outside the domestic sector. We also thankfully began our contingency and business continuity plans earlier, with the benefit of insights and learnings from other AirAsia Group airlines operating in China and the ASEAN region. Now, if you look at India specifically from post the lockdown, 25th of May is when domestic operations started again. And they started with a significant decrease in the number of daily passengers for that period. So overall domestic passengers flown daily were down to 46,000 in that period. But that has increased month on month significantly. Even as early as June, there was a 27% increase in that number up to 66,000. By August, it had reached nearly 100,000, 94,000. So there was a 47% increase month on month in August. Sorry, a 34%. We increased 47% in that period as AirAsia India. Similarly, again in September, there's been another 37 to 38% increase in the number of daily passengers flown. So while the compared to a pre-COVID period, which if you look at a similar number last year, same time in September, say of 2019, the average domestic passengers was about 384,000 compared to the 130 today. So you're down to about 30% of what it was in a comparative period last year. But it is increasing significantly month on month. And we're just entering the festive season in India, October, November, and December. So we've just completed a travel intent survey with domestic flyers, and the outlook seems quite positive. So while the surveyed audience comprised of flyers, and they said the last travel for them, for example, for about 43% of them was between 6 months and a year ago, before the country first went into lockdown. And again, less than a quarter of those surveyed respondents had traveled within the last 3 months. However, over half of the respondents indicated that they plan to travel in this festive season between October and December. An additional third stated that they may travel. So only 14% of flyers from a pre-COVID period definitely said that they had no intention of traveling till the end of this year. So while we recognize that the nature of travel is different, what we've also seen is that the demographics traveling are significantly different. And that in many ways throws up an opportunity, especially from the perspective of looking at how we deploy technology. Because what we have seen in the actual travel, we collect, for example, date of birth, unlike many other airlines, to strengthen our data in terms of demographics. And we have seen a significant increase in the number of younger consumers, or the proportion of younger consumers, nearly half of the individuals traveling being under 30 years old. So there is a demographic dividend that India naturally has because of the young population and their ability to pick up technology easier, to adopt to new technologies a lot easier, as well as the change due to the post-pandemic travel being skewed towards younger consumers, and the implementation of a lot of technologies which has come into play, which has allowed us to really change the norms in terms of the nature of travel itself. And we've been able to deploy a lot of different technologies in this period, ranging from even looking at things like collaborating with airports, like our hub at Bangalore, to enable DigiYatra, which is an initiative which is coordinated with the Ministry of Civil Aviation, to enable guests flying on select flights from Bangalore to register and use their biometrics as their boarding pass. We've been able to implement SMS bag tags, a self-baggage drop facility. We've launched some new services like a co-branded service which we call AirAsia Flyporter, which allows guests to have their bags picked up from their doorstep at home and delivered to the airport, and then again picked up from the airline when they land and delivered to their homes in 3 of our hubs, Bangalore, Delhi, as well as the station in Hyderabad. At services that we've launched at very affordable prices. So the doorstep to doorstep baggage delivery service, for example, we've launched it at 500 rupees, which is under $7, which can be pre-booked online and is completely contactless as a journey. And we've initiated some of these because we think that this is an opportunity to actually redefine the processes and the way in which people will travel. So we want to have this in keeping with our philosophy of making travel affordable and democratizing travel, to have these at very affordable rates so that people adopt these technologies a lot quicker. We've also been very conscious, for example, of not trying to make a quick buck out of the fear psychosis, because we think that's damaging in the long term, while realizing that there are opportunities for ancillary services. For example, many airlines are charging for seats to allow social distancing. Our take has been to leverage technology to enable, for example, algorithms that automatically social distance within the flights, given that the load factors are lower. So we're trying to deploy technology to make it a more seamless guest experience, rather than looking at deploying technology to make practical opportunistic benefit in the short term. Because we think that if we're able to redefine the way in which people travel, then the industry in general will benefit over an extended period of time.
Thanks a lot, Siddharth, for a detailed explanation on how the recovery is expected. Cyril is also mentioning that the first stage of recovery comes highly with domestic travel, and then the international. I hope you agree to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely seeing that domestic travel is where, and we expect that while the return to pre-COVID levels may still take a couple of years, I think the general industry consensus across, I mean, even if you look at ACI recommendations or the new projections across industry bodies, is looking at 2022, 23, global pre-crisis travel spends unlikely before 2024. We see domestic, and we have seen some signals of that coming, for example, even from China, of the domestic recovery being a lot faster. But the nature of that travel has also changed significantly. It started off with very essential travel. We saw in India very specific routes. So in the initial periods of the pandemic, it was metro to non-metro one-way traffic that was happening. We saw a reverse migration happening from rural areas into cities. The demographic, as I said, has changed significantly. The number of days out of travel has reduced substantially. So people are not making long-term plans. They're traveling much shorter, or booking much shorter to the period in which they actually need to travel, which means all your revenue management and projection algorithms need to change substantially. So organizations which are able to leverage that data and consumer insights will be able to demand forecast a lot better. And the role, for example, even of marketing in the organization is changing, because an understanding of the new consumer is also going to be defining network planning and revenue management in the longer term. With regulation which is imposed in India, for example, right now, there's a fare capping that the government has. So till the 24th of November, all airlines on the same sector are operating on the same fares, which means the brand becomes a lot more important as a differentiator, because consumers, unlike in the traditional airline industry, where the primary point at which they would choose between airlines is the price, are actually seeing all the airlines operating on exactly the same price. So it's the other services, the manner in which you'll differentiate using technology, provide a better customer service, and the brand affinity that will actually enable you to command a premium or increase your market share in the market.
Okay, so one more question to you, Sid, and after that we'll go to Cyril. So the question is, now 12.2% of the global airline revenue is from ancillary. Do you think that boosting ancillary revenue drastically by allowing onboard marketing, selling things which is not sold on board till now in the airline, can we help airlines recover faster? To give you an example, there are 30% of the ancillary revenue basically comes from onboard sales. The rest of things is basically baggage and things like that, where nothing much can be improved unless and until the passenger volume goes up. So onboard is basically, if you look at that way, 4% of the global airline is coming from onboard sale. Can we somehow bring in technology, boost that onboard sales like 3 times to 4 times by allowing customers to buy more than what they were buying till date, that is F&B and some merchandise? Is it possible, or is it too ambitious to basically look at it?
So no, absolutely. There's a phenomenal opportunity over there. But again, I think that the nature of the way in which people are interacting with ancillary post COVID has changed substantially, and I think some of those changes are there for the long term. So to take some examples, we saw a significant increase primarily because of the nature of travel in excess baggage, right? Because people who were traveling one way. Return travel was not happening as much. Business travel has decreased substantially, and therefore excess baggage became a much larger component, right? At the same time, because we deployed social distancing and auto seat assignment algorithms and started assigning window and aisle seats automatically, our seat revenue obviously went down. But that may be here to stay. We may decide, for example, to give people preferences of which seats that they want to sit in as a customer experience, rather than trying to make them pay for it. But looking at, there's been no revenue, for example, from in-flight advertising in magazines because we have stopped deploying magazines. So the nature of that old print kind of world has changed. There has been no revenue from merchandising in the flights because we're not doing merchandising in the flights. There's been no revenue from commercial sales of in-flight meals. We've just recommenced pre-booked meals, but the take-up rate on pre-booked meals, and therefore what we're seeing is going to be the long-term proportion of pre-book versus in-flight meals will be a lot higher, which will enable us to reduce the wastage a lot more. But where we see the opportunity, for example, for in-flight sales, is to actually extend the ecosystem out of what people can traditionally buy in the flight itself. So what we've been doing in this period, for example, is tying up with partners like Flyporter, the baggage delivery service, the ability to book your baggage to be delivered to your house while you're in the flight, so that all that needs to be done is somebody will greet you at the airport, pick up your bags, because it's an SMS bag tag now. They don't have to collect your bag tag from you. You can forward that SMS bag tag onto that individual. with the integration with the systems, they already have that information. The airline has that information. You just need to opt in to buy that. You could burn your loyalty points in the flight to allow that to happen as well on the devices in the flight with a simple opt-in, and your bag will get delivered to your home. The other thing, for example, the other partnership we've introduced recently in recognition of people's apprehensions about traveling with shared car services like an Uber or Ola, is we've launched a partnership with Avis in India, where we have a microsite where we've said whether you want a chauffeur-driven car or a self-drive car, it's in our interest also to have the journey of the guests happen in as safe and contactless a manner as possible, and to own the entire travel journey rather than only looking at the time that the traditional airlines have looked at, which is the in-flight experience. So that enables us, for example, to say, while you're in your flight, why don't you book your car as well? And Avis operates at the airport. So it's just a matter, again, of facilitating that communication to go from when the individual lands, and there is a period of time always from when the flight lands and the connectivity is there, or when Wi-Fi comes into the flights, to when the passenger will actually exit the airport. Including the other thing that we're seeing in terms of travel intent from the survey that we have conducted is that there is a demographic of people who are more optimistic about traveling, who are yearning to travel, and they're looking to travel not because it is an essential need or a business need, but they're looking to travel back to the core of what travel always used to be, which was about experiences. And therefore, the nature of selling those experiences, which are curated to the individuals, whether that is hospitality, such as within the Tata Group, we have the Taj hotels, so we're partnering with them, for example, to look at flight plus hotel packages, or whether it is experiences which people are looking for, whether that be diving, going out with friends, etc. And if you have a credible brand that knows that we are delivering, and airlines have done that, I think, taken the forefront of saying we deliver the best experience in terms of safe contactless travel journeys, to extend that brand thought to say we can therefore also authenticate your vehicles, your other travel needs, your insurance, your experiences at the venues, your activities when you're traveling to these destinations, and use in-flight to be able to sell those services, market those services a lot better. I think that's really where the future of this will be, and extends the application of ancillary revenue a lot more beyond the traditional bag seats and meals than we've thought of.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sid, for that update. So, Cyril, you are the embedded expert, and you are the IFE, IFC expert. So I would like to ask more on what IoT can actually do in flight, number one. Number two, based on the discussion we had with Siddharth, so how do we actually enable to sell more on board?
Okay. Well, thank you, Ajith, for your questions. So first, people need to know that for the last 3 or 5 years, Wi-Fi is enabled on board the aircraft, meaning that general perception of the public is that they cannot use their mobile phone, their smartphone, or their tablet during the flight. The first thing is that now the aircraft are certified to use the Wi-Fi on board, which is important because this enables wireless networks during the flight, so Wi-Fi to connect to the onboard server, and also if it is available to the internet. And when it comes to IoT, of course, now on board the aircraft you can have technical networks such as LoRa or Bluetooth Low Energy, and so on and so on. So starting from this point, you can imagine very easily the power of the IoT that can be brought during the flight. Basically, there are programs supported by the airframers. Airbus is one of them, and they have their airspace program, which is the connected cabin experience, where IoT can be involved with the galley, the overhead bin, the lavatories, and so on and so on. So all these components of the cabin can be connected and provide information either to the cabin crew or to the passenger, or both of them. Let's take an example. At PXCom, we have developed one solution which is called in-cabin mobility management, and that help airlines to manage the passengers gathering during the flight, and help the airlines to organize this wandering in the air. For example, one of the software components of the in-flight cabin mobility management is the toilets gathering. So there is basically a sensor that detects whether the toilet is occupied or not. And thanks to that, we can send the information directly to the passenger and the cabin crew, so that the passenger do not have to wait in front of the toilets during minutes and minutes, and then the queuing management can be really organized. When it comes to the ancillary revenues, so thanks to those sensors, I know that there are seat manufacturers which are working on the connected seat, a seat where there are a lot of sensors, including sensors to monitor passenger health and stress level, for example. So we can easily imagine that in the very near future, when the cabin crew is informed by the platform, the software platform, that passenger on the seat 7A, for example, has a very high heartbeat and so on, then the cabin crew can come directly to this specific passenger, have a quick check whether it is health or stress, and if it's stress, can offer the passenger to have some relaxing experience, for example, VR, offering a VR headset with a relaxing experience. This is how the technology can bring new ancillary revenues to those airlines. And thanks to that, IoT in the cabin can leverage the passenger experience and restore the confidence of the passenger, because currently this is the pain point of the air travel. There are capacities, but the confidence of a passenger has to be restored. And you need, and Siddharth said it very well, you need to restore confidence and to bring the passenger to the aircraft. And to do so, you need to act on different touch points. Digitization is one of the touch points. Seamless and contactless travel is another one. And all this can be brought by the technology. Siddharth and Viresh mentioned it very clearly. Thanks to the mobile phone, you can have contactless experience. And thanks to the IoT and the wireless in-flight entertainment, you can have also a contactless in-flight passengers experience, restoring passengers' confidence.
Okay, thanks. I think we have another 8 more minutes. Certain observation which I made during this session. One is, I think, pandemic has hit tourism and airline really badly. I believe, technology companies has got a bigger role to play right now, especially by introducing OPEX model solutions, so that airlines doesn't have to basically take the burden of testing the technology, number one. And because of our experience, our product in the industry for onboard sale, I understand there is IoT can play quite a lot of role in terms of monitoring expiry of the perishable item on board. We can basically, like Cyril has said, we can basically monitor quite a lot of sensors on board. It looks to me, and even now there is no connection from the ground to the flight, which is very expensive, and it's not very financially viable. So I believe it is going to be like Airline cloud. You might have heard about city cloud, where a city will do their smart city implementation in their own cloud. And in this particular case, Airline will have multiple applications hosted inside Airline, which is basically work in a closed network. It will not be connected with outside world, but it will basically take care of the sensors. It will take care of your onboard magazines from IFE company. It could take care of order taking, or it can take a sale on board. It can basically monitor what is the current status of your, let's say, lavatory, who is using it, if it is vacant. Can you even reserve it rather than going there and queuing in front of the lavatory? So I believe this kind of a network is going to come up in the near future, and then maybe subsequently when the connectivity to Airline become cost effective, this will get open to the normal internet. So we have one more question from Professor Mirko, and then we will go on concluding the session. Is there a risk that we create a wider rift between the rich and the budget travelers, meaning we can sell more aux services to rich and make budget travelers jump through even more hoops? Example, health checks travelers. Who would like to take that question? I think Siddharth will be the right person to answer that.
I don't mind doing that. Yeah.
I would have recommended Siddharth first. Siddharth, you want to take it?
Yeah, happy to. So I've had this thesis for a while actually that I've been speaking of, and I base it on a maxim that was actually, it was coined by a cyberpunk science fiction author called William Gibson. Cyberpunk is the same genre that movies like Blade Runner, which was based on the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep come from. And then it was also a rule, I think, called the Varian rule. The chief economist of Google, who was a microeconomist, one of the authors that I studied when I was studying economics. And he said a simple way to look at the future, to forecast the future, is to look at what rich people have today. Middle income people will have something equivalent in a decade from now, and poor people will have it in an additional decade. But the manner in which that consumer need is met is not fulfilled by the same product or service. And I think that is where technology precipitates the Varian rule. So if you look at rich people don't wait in line traditionally, right? They have personal assistants who ensure that their car is waiting at the curb, the maitre d' escorts them to their table, they have staff to open their doors, etc. For the middle income or the digital rich, what I call, it's IoT, which provides the same service, right? They have Google Assistant. So instead of chauffeurs, we have Uber, self-driving cars, omniscient apps, etc. In the digital rich world of everything, the shut-in economy, what we call Amazon Prime, Netflix, Uber Eats, where everybody is shut in, you're either a 21st century servant in the mercenary gig economy, or you're pampered, isolated royalty. Or actually you're a mix of both. You're providing the same service to another set of consumers, but you're also taking the same services. So when you look at the gig economy, the massive disruption that has happened even in the global lockdown, it's worth looking at how they've recently metamorphosized to becoming a cross-border offline to online gig economy. There's been wide-scale adoption of technologies like Zoom. So it's rendered the utilitarian need for travel rather redundant. So we need to move away from commoditization to some of this. But I do think that there need not be a distinction between trying to make money from one set of what we traditionally call richer consumers or poorer consumers, but instead to provide value to all the sets of consumers because their needs are very different. And just by looking at the bottom of the pyramid, and that's the reason we've introduced affordable services powered by digital, the amount of revenue that you could make by addressing that bottom of the pyramid with a more affordable solution is significantly higher than the kind of concierge services that you will be able to provide to the top 0.5% of consumers. So that's my take on that short question.
Okay, so thanks a lot, and we have 2 more minutes. So let me try to conclude the session.
Maybe
Siddharth,
I'll just add a couple of things.
yes,
May not
please.
directly related to this. So something that we have implemented across to all our airlines is a bot, a chat bot. One is that's called as a COVID-19 bot, which is available for any traveler to log in there and try and see how the travel is going to be. They can ask questions. The bot is going to help them, seeing that how the destination is going to be there. So that's called as a COVID-19 bot that from Amadeus. And second, the bot that we implemented with the travel agencies and the airlines is to help them to answer all the queries that the lot of queries that the people were, this travel agents or the airline agents were getting in. So these are a couple of things which the technology has also helped us. Maybe the COVID-19 has pushed us to release so quicker and try and do that. And we see a very positive response in this.
So thanks a lot, Virish. So thanks a lot, Cyril. We have just 1 more minute left. So let me conclude this. It was a great session. There is quite a lot I understood and learned from this session. Siddharth, thanks a lot for giving a perspective from the airline company. Cyril, I have so many more questions to you, basically because of the IoT angle on the same. Virish, I know that Amadeus is a giant and the front runner in technology in aviation industry. I'm sure that you will be coming with some good solution, a platform play for all of us to collaborate and ensure that airlines are recovering faster. That's all from our side. Thanks a lot, and back to the organizers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for the organization team.
Digital around the world.